Curiosity AIs. Roman Civil Wars. The rivalry of Marius and Sulla, the struggle for power in Rome. In the waning days of the Roman Republic, two men would rise to prominence, Caius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Their intertwined fates and bitter rivalry would change the course of Roman history forever, leaving behind a legacy of violence, power struggles, and political reform that would echo throughout the ages. Caius Marius was a self-made man. Born into a modest family in the small town of Arpinum, he rose through the ranks of the Roman army on sheer merit. His military prowess first caught the attention of Rome when he served as a brilliant general during the Jugurthine War. Standing victorious on the battlefield, Marius embodied the Roman ideal of strength and determination. He represented the hopes of the common man, a hero from humble beginnings who would ascend to the highest offices of power. Marius' greatest triumph came not only from his military victories but from his sweeping reforms of the Roman army. Before his reforms, the Roman legions were comprised mainly of property-owning citizens. Marius, seeing the need for a larger, more flexible army, opened the legions to the landless poor. This decision reshaped Roman society, giving rise to an army that was more loyal to its generals than to the Senate. It was a decision that would later have deadly consequences for the Republic. While Marius' star was ascending, Lucius Cornelius Sulla was also making a name for himself. Born into an ancient but impoverished patrician family, Sulla was known for his cunning and ambition. Early in his career, he served under Marius during the Jugurthine War. Yet even then, their differences were stark. Where Marius was seen as a man of the people, Sulla's patrician background and calculated demeanor set him apart. He was ambitious, determined, and, as events would soon reveal, ruthless. For a time, the two men fought side by side during the Social War, a brutal conflict where Rome's Italian allies rebelled, seeking equal citizenship rights. On the battlefield, Marius and Sulla were allies, leading their legions together to victory. But even in the heat of war, the seeds of their eventual conflict were being sown. Marius, already a six-time consul, was aging, and his body was no longer suited to the harsh life of the military. Meanwhile, Sulla, younger and hungry for power, was gaining influence. Their rivalry truly began when Sulla was elected consul for the first time in 88 BC. The backdrop of their conflict was the ongoing war with Mithridates, the ambitious king of Pontus, who threatened Rome's eastern territories. The Senate, recognizing Sulla's military acumen, appointed him to lead the campaign against Mithridates. But Marius, though older, was not ready to relinquish his grip on power. Through political machinations, Marius convinced the popular assemblies to transfer command of the war to him instead. Sulla's reaction was unprecedented. Marching on Rome with his legions, Sulla did what no Roman general had ever done: he brought the tools of war into the heart of the Republic. In an astonishing display of audacity, he took the city by force, sending Marius fleeing into exile. Sulla had demonstrated that Rome's own military could be turned against it, shattering the long-held taboo of using legions in domestic politics. With Marius in exile, Sulla left for the east to wage war against Mithridates. But in his absence, Rome descended into chaos. Marius returned, thirsting for vengeance. In a grim chapter of Roman history, he seized control of the city, and alongside his ally Cinna, enacted brutal proscriptions, a series of purges where their political enemies were executed or exiled. The streets of Rome ran red with the blood of the nobility, and Marius finally achieved his seventh consulship, though his victory would be short-lived. Marius died just weeks later, leaving behind a city in turmoil. Sulla, after defeating Mithridates, returned to a fractured Rome. With his legions at his back, he marched on the city once again, determined to restore order, but on his terms. His second march was even bloodier than the first. In the Battle of the Colline Gate, Sulla crushed the remaining forces loyal to Marius and Cinna. The civil war was over, and Sulla emerged victorious. In the aftermath, Sulla did not simply assume power, he took it in a way that no Roman had before. He declared himself dictator, not for the usual 6-month period, but indefinitely. As dictator, Sulla rewrote the Roman constitution to consolidate power in the hands of the Senate, curbing the influence of the popular assemblies and tribunes that Marius had once championed. He reinstated proscriptions, targeting the allies of Marius, and filled the city with terror as his political enemies were hunted down. Yet, in a surprising twist, after just a few years, Sulla did what no one expected. He voluntarily abdicated his dictatorship. He retired to private life, walking the streets of Rome as a common citizen, though his actions had forever altered the Republic. The people looked upon him with a mixture of awe and fear. His reforms had restored order for a time, but they also paved the way for future generals like Pompey and Julius Caesar to use military force for political gain. Though Marius and Sulla were gone, their legacies endured. In the hearts of the Roman people, Marius was remembered as the champion of the common man, a soldier who had risen through the ranks and given power to the disenfranchised. His army reforms, though initially popular, would eventually contribute to the collapse of the Republic, as soldiers became more loyal to their commanders than to the state itself. Sulla, on the other hand, was seen as the man who had saved Rome, only to destroy it in another way. His dictatorship had temporarily stabilized the Republic, but at the cost of setting a dangerous precedent that military force could be used to seize power. His constitutional reforms were quickly undone, and Rome soon descended into further chaos. The rivalry of Marius and Sulla was more than just a personal feud, it was a reflection of the greater struggle within the Republic. It highlighted the tension between the old aristocracy and the rising power of the masses, between the Senate and the army, and between the ideals of the Republic and the harsh reality of military power. Their story is one of ambition, betrayal, and the slow unraveling of the Roman political system. In the end, both men played their roles in the destruction of the Republic, leaving a legacy of violence and civil war that would ultimately lead to the rise of the Roman Empire. The statues of Marius and Sulla stand as silent witnesses to their era, as Rome moved from the age of the Republic into the age of emperors. Thanks for watching. If you like this content, please consider subscribing.